With pepperoni, fa la 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 la. Mustard, eggplant, and bologna, fa la 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 la. Santa Claus will bring his reindeer, fa la 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 la.
Welcome to episode 25 of the Party Wagon Podcast. I'm your host, Brendan, from the YouTube channel Brendan's Rambles. And Eric's, again, not with us this week. He will be back soon, but, you're just going to have to bear with me in these episodes where it's just me. But we will have guests on the podcast today with Chris Fawcett, CJ, author of Rad Plastic, and Gary, who also worked on Rad Plastic. And we're going to talk about all their toy hunting, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles adventures later in this podcast. But first, I'm just going to do the news segment real quickly on my own. There's not a ton of news, so I figured, I'm just going to cover it on my own, and then we'll jump into the interesting stuff. So, probably the biggest news story right now is that in previous podcasts, I said that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were guest starring in every single video game as playable characters, except the biggest crossover game, Fortnite, which every franchise ends up in eventually. But no, we do have them now in Fortnite. They are coming to Fortnite, and something that's interesting about it is we're not getting a specific version of the Turtles. We're getting new Fortnite designs of the Turtles, which I think is actually a cool route to go because it makes them fit in with the game more. And it's hard to just pick one version of the Turtles. Everyone has a different favorite version, so it's a good choice. But we saw the designs of the 4 Turtles and someone else we'll talk about in a bit. The designs they're good. They're not my favorite. There's something about the anatomy that's a little weird. The legs are real long on them because they're just skins. Everything in Fortnite is a skin, essentially. So they have these real long human legs, and even their torsos are kind of human-y, and I don't love it. Something about it just looks off. Sometimes looks really weird, especially Raph. Raph looks way too tall. But they're not bad designs, though. They're a little busy. They have a lot of little pouches and thigh straps and stuff for no real reason other than to have more detail. But it's very true to the Fortnite aesthetic. They very much fit in with the Fortnite look. So they're not the worst designs I've ever seen. I like the all-white eyes. They always do the skull cap with Raph now, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I know a lot of people like him with the skull cap. I think Raph probably has the weakest design of all of them. I would say Raph probably has the weakest design, and Donnie probably has the strongest. I would say from good to bad, it's Donnie, Leo, Mike, Raph. Raph has this weird Masters of the Universe Beastman pauldrons on his shoulders, and he's just real stretched out and gangly, and he has that skull cap I'm not a huge fan of. So in general, I think Raph is my least favorite of the designs, but it's by no means a terrible Raph design. They're all pretty good designs for the Turtles, especially again, it's nice that they fit in with the aesthetic of Fortnite because, they have Dragon Ball Z characters in Fortnite, and they literally just look like Akira Toriyama's drawings. They have the line art and everything. So it's pretty cool to have the Fortnite Turtles actually look like they belong in Fortnite. They went the extra mile of redesigning them. We're getting a 5th character at least. There could be even more. 5th skin. We're getting April O'Neil, and she's also a redesign. Very much inspired by the 87 version of her, but she looks considerably younger. She looks kind of like that April as a teenager, definitely before her chest started to grow in, because she's much smaller in the chest region than she was in the 87 cartoon. So she just kind of looks younger in that regard. She's a skinnier, more slimmed down April O'Neil. She's dressed kind of like a early 2000s punk or something. Actually, you know what she's dressed like? She's kind of dressed like Ted Theodore Logan from Bill and Ted, specifically like the outfit with the white t-shirt and then like the baggy orange capri pants that they gave him in like the cartoon and everything, like the most iconic outfit from the movie. She kind of looks like that getup, but April O'Neil. So I don't love the April O'Neil design. It's definitely the weakest of the 5, but yeah, it's not bad. I still just think it's weird every time April gets added to games. Like, of all the playable characters, and I know they're just skins, but of all the playable characters, you could have added Shredder or Rocksteady or Bebop or Rat King or Leatherhead or something. You add April. Like, April just doesn't seem that special to me. And it's still weird every time they go with 87 April and make her a fighter, because 87 April really wasn't a fighter. And I know this isn't technically 87 April, and I don't really care much. It's cool to see her be a fighter, but it just seems like April's never my first pick for a 5th playable character in a video game, but she seems to be everybody else's first pick. You know, she was the first playable character other than the Turtles shown off for Shredder's Revenge. She was the first playable character other than a turtle shown off for Nick All-Star Brawl, even before we even got Raph or Don, years before we got Raph or Don. So it just seems like everyone goes for April right away, but I would have rather gone with Shredder, Krang's body, or like Bebop and Rocksteady, maybe like Baxter Stockman or something. But it's still cool. Oh, or Splinter. But it's cool to get her. I mean, it shows that we're probably going to get more Turtles characters. Like, it's probably going to eventually have Shredder and Splinter and stuff in there. Probably Casey Jones, I would say. He'd be an easy one to do. But yeah, Turtles in Fortnite. And they're also bringing a bunch of like other content. So I don't play Fortnite, so I don't know how this works. There's a bunch of little like avatars. I guess those are just your player avatar, or maybe those are like tags you can put somewhere. I don't know how it works. But I've seen those, and I've seen a whole area that's like the sewer layer, but it's not in New York City. It's like in the middle of a desert or something. But yeah, there's this whole sewer layer. And I think it was shown in a trailer earlier that had like Solid Snake in it. And it doesn't look like any one version of the turtle layer, just like the characters don't look like any one version of the turtles. It's just kind of a generic representation of what the turtle layer is like. There's some cool stuff. I like the big pizza rug on the area rug on the floor. But yeah, it looks cool. It's, again, I don't play Fortnite. I never have. It's cool looking now. If I did, I'd be super hyped about this, and I just think it's cool to see it happen. Even though Fortnite is just becoming the Oasis from Ready Player One, where they added like a Mario Kart mode, and they added like a Lego mode, which is basically Minecraft. They're trying to like wipe out Minecraft with Fortnite now, I think. And Ninja Turtles are in both, but they have them for the Lego Fortnite thing. Also, they already have the turtles in that too, and they're more or less the same designs as the regular Fortnite turtles. So, it's pretty cool. It's a lot of Turtles content all at once. So they really are working their way into every single game. I wonder what game they're going to show up in next. I wouldn't be surprised if they show up in freaking Smash Brothers at this point. They're in every game. So, I mean, they're already in 2 other platform fighters. They're in Nick All-Star Brawl, and they're in Brawlhalla. So Turtles are everywhere, man. Turtles are everywhere these days. It's crazy how abundant the Turtles are in, all media now. But we also got some action figure news, not really of like new figures coming out, but new figures we didn't know about. It's just like figures we did know about are finally going up for pre-order and hitting store shelves and stuff. Like the Creature from the Black Lagoon Leo is out there now. Same with the Usagi Yojimbo 4-pack, which has like all the different versions of Usagi. We have that out, and we have some of the Last Ronin figures are out. I believe it's Mike, Raph, and Splinter, which is weird because Splinter was originally shown off with Donatello, so I don't know why Donatello isn't out yet. Especially since Donatello and Splinter go together in the comic book, in their plot line, in their story. Like, they're very closely connected. So it's weird to release Splinter before Donatello. You think they would have done Mike and Raph, then Splinter and Donatello, but and maybe Leo's out. You think they want to do Leo and Casey together because they were closely connected in that comic. I don't know. I would have done Raph and Karai, Leo and Casey. I don't know who that guy would do with Mike. Mike and wait, no. What am I talking about? Why am I saying Mike? Anyone who's read The Last Ronin knows that we don't have to add a Mike figure. It's Leo and Raph have been released. Okay, so I would do, Leo and Casey, Raph and Karai, and then Don and Splinter. They're not selling them as 2-packs though. They're just standalone figures. I think there is a Raph that comes in a 2-pack with Karai. I don't remember, but I believe right now it's just Leo, Raph, and Splinter that are out right now. So I don't know when we're getting that Donatello. I don't know if he is out, if he is for pre-order, and I just didn't see it. But from the places I checked, I only saw those 3 figures being shown off for the Last Ronin figures. So I'm sure they're all coming soon. I mean, they're clearly starting to roll this stuff out, NECA. Like all the stuff we saw at San Diego Comic-Con and stuff is starting to finally, come to light now. So I think we're going to start getting a lot of NECA figures in the new year. Probably when the new year comes, a bunch of them are going to start dropping, especially at Haulathon in like March or April. I think we're going to get a ton of figures at that time. We usually do. So we'll see. I don't know how much of it's actually going to be Toon because we don't have that much coming out. We have like the Samurai Mike with Space Don and stuff like that. We have the Space Usagi. I know we have some other stuff. Oh, we have the business suit Casey and stuff. But for the most part, I'm pretty sure they said the giant Krang body is coming out like the very end of 2024, like holiday 2024. I think they said it's coming out. So we have a whole year before that comes out, if that is the correct release date. So we don't have a ton of the Toon stuff coming, but a lot of Mirage, a lot of Last Ronin. I know a lot of people, myself included, are looking forward to the Mirage Rat King. That's an awesome looking figure. So a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon, just not a lot of exciting Toon stuff on the horizon, but a lot of NECA. We've had a quiet spell from NECA for a while, which is rare. Usually NECA's constantly pumping stuff out. I have seen some new NECA stuff in stores. I know I've seen the Creature from the Black Lagoon, not Leo, but the actual Universal Monster Creature from the Black Lagoon, which I need to get. I saw the Earl Sinclair from Dinosaurs, Jim Henson's Dinosaurs. And I want to get that one, but I'm being very stingy with money right now because I had to spend a lot of money on stuff. I still have stuff I have to spend a lot of money on coming up. So I'm not in a big collector phase right now, but I got to say, I was shocked how tiny that Earl Sinclair was. I was expecting him to be like a massive figure, like a really big, like Godzilla sized figure, but he's really short. I feel like he's got to be like maybe the same height as the movie Turtles. Yeah, he was really short when I saw him in the package. I opened because his package is huge. So I was expecting him to fill the entire thing. And then I opened up the flap and he's like this tiny little thing in there. And I was not expecting that. I mean, it'll probably make it better for costs because I do want to buy him and hopefully that makes him cheaper. But damn, he's a lot smaller than I thought he was going to be. I thought I was going to have this awesome, huge Earl Sinclair on my shelf, but he's just going to be this little itty bitty thing you can barely see. So him being that small really makes me wonder why they switched Baby Sinclair from being a accessory packed in with Earl to being his own standalone figure. Because I feel like you easily could have just shoved Baby and the height chair and stuff into that box and just made it a 2-pack. But I guess most of that package is just his tail. I think Earl's tail is taking up most of the space. Because I don't even think he comes with that many accessories. I could be wrong, but I don't think he comes with that many. He should at least come with like the TV or something. But I know he's small, but he's chunky. Like he's short, I should say. Not small, he's short, but he's still a big solid lump of a figure. So I can get if he doesn't come with that many accessories, depending on what the price is. I don't know what the price is. He wasn't labeled there. I didn't have anybody price check him for me. He might be like $50. If he's $50, then he should be the size of like the buffed out Napoleon Bonafrog or something. He should be huge. But speaking of which, I still have not gotten the Napoleon, the huge Napoleon, and I still see him at every Target I go to. So maybe someday, if he's on like a clearance rack one day, I'll get him. But I don't know what it is. That's one of the first mutant figures they've made in that line that I just have no real need to get. Maybe someday. So we'll see about that. That's really it for toy news. It's kind of a slow time period for toys. I've seen the new wave of Mutant Mayhem figures hitting stores. I've seen Mondo Gecko and stuff on shelves, but other than that, there's really nothing else new. I've seen the Super Duper Fly, which for some reason they just called the Mega Mutant. He's not as big as I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be like a massive figure. He's really not that big. He's nowhere near as big as he is in the movie, so he's not to scale with the rest of the figures, but what are you going to do? They don't want to release something that's going to end up being like $80 or no parent's going to want to buy him. He's probably under $40. So I can see that. He might even be like $24, $25. I don't know, but he's not a huge figure.
This is April O'Neil, Channel 6 News, and you're watching the Party Wagon Podcast.
All right, so you guys already know who I am. If you've been following the podcast for a while, you probably already know who Chris is, Chris Fawcett, author of Rad Plastic. But we have him back today, and Chris and Gary, you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Chris Fawcett, like I said, author of Rad Plastic, and me and Gary are actually out here in Los Angeles, like live right now, hunting around for interesting Ninja Turtles and other things, so.
Hey, my name is Gary Borbidge. I'm a friend of Chris. I helped out a little bit with Rad Plastic on the research end, and I'm the co-author myself of a book called Engineering Empire, which was, we told the story of all the men and women that worked on the Kenner Star Wars line back in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, that's
awesome.
How
Chris and I met researching that book.
Okay, so I knew Chris was a big Kenner Star Wars guy, but that explains a lot. You guys were both big Kenner Star Wars guys.
Yeah. I found out they were doing their book, and I had a lot of contacts, so I'm like, I just called him up. I actually heard you guys on a podcast, and I was like, I think I could help these guys out. So I contacted them and said, hey, I got some, people I know that would probably be interested to be in the book. And so I was giving them names and numbers and contact info. So that's how we got connected.
Oh, that's awesome. And how long you guys been doing this kind of stuff together?
Like, was it 5 years? A little over 5 years?
Going in our 6th year doing it together.
Wow. So like 2018,
2017. So, yeah. Yeah, you're right. 6 years. Dang. Time flies.
I was by, man. I can't believe I moved just like less than 5 years ago. It's insane. But yeah, so you guys have been out there in Los Angeles. I wanted to ask a question about this because I was just wondering, because I'm not in the scene you guys are in. I'm in like I just collect what stores are offering on the scene. So when you go for these hunts, when you go and look at stuff, I'm not sure how the process works. Do people come to you and say they have a collection, or do you seek them out? And if you do, what's that process like?
Yeah, it's all seeking out. I mean, when I started doing the book, I was actively calling people. It's whatever. It's cold calling, cold emailing, cold whatever contact way you can find to contact someone. And you just try to get a hold of them. Sometimes people are really easy to find, and sometimes they're near impossible. I mean, there's been people I was looking for 4 years, or 5 years, and then suddenly found them, like 6 months ago. And there's other people that like literally the first phone call I made was the right person.
Oh, that's great. That's got to be great when that happens.
Yeah. What do I do?
No, I think it's I guess a mix of both, where it's a lot of like kind of research and searching out people and trying to track them down, but then kind of once we've established a kind of a base and a good name in what we do, we will then sometimes get recommendations from other like former employees or about other collections, and they will reach out to us on the back end. So that, I guess, it goes both ways.
Yeah, that's true. Once you start to meet some people, they're like, they'll refer you to someone else or their buddy, or they'll say, hey, like there's this sculptor guy I know, and I'm like, well, do you have his number? And they're like, yeah, I do. Like, could you reach out to them for me and see if it'd be okay if I talk to them, and you get a contact that way a lot of times. So it's sort of like a spider web. It's like you start with one and you get a few names, and those names spread to more names and contacts and various ways of meeting people.
Well, that's good, man. Networking is everything. So
it's pretty much networking. I mean, that's if you want to be boring about it, that's the name for it, is networking.
Sorry for making it sound boring. It's awesome.
No.
So I don't know whether to ask you guys I wanted to ask you what's like the greatest Ninja Turtle find you ever found. But I think before we get into that, I want to ask you, what's the greatest find you had with this most recent search?
Oh, this weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
This weekend. Oh,
I know.
Well, Gary, I'll let Gary go first while I think about it.
It's actually not Ninja Turtle. So for you fans of the 1980s wrestling scene, LJN Toy Company put out the original kind of rubber 8-inch wrestling guys. And so I grew up playing with those, and we were visiting with somebody we'd visited with several times, and out pops a box, and from inside that box he pulls out the original wax sculpt for George the Animal Steel.
Oh my God.
8-inch George. Yeah, so that was that blew my mind when that popped out of the box. Didn't expect to see that. So for me, that's the best thing we saw during this trip by far.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. If I had any clue about wrestling, I would probably say the same thing. I get the vibe from Gary that it's like a pretty incredible piece, but I have no clue about that line. So
I feel like George doesn't get the respect he should these days. Like anytime people do like retro wrestling figures and stuff now, they really never do George the Animal Steel. It's always the same guy
anymore, which is, I mean, I think they should bring that back. But
LJN made good stuff though. They made real chunky toys you could really beat the hell out of when we were kids.
Yeah, for me, this trip, it was I was able to get two original pencil artworks for the unproduced Spellcaster Splinter figure.
Oh, cool!
So they're kind of very similar. They're just like, you could tell it's like they're labeled 2 and 3, and I don't know what number 1 looked like or what happened to it, but they're basically the same pose, same figure. But there's some notes in this folder from Playmates. There was like, he has a staff. They're like, change the staff to have a crystal ball on the end, and so you see going from one to the other the change in the staff and some other changes. So original art is just like really like top notch in my book, to have the original pencil. And this particular artist I know and have become friends with over the last 4 or 5 years. So to have some of his artwork was really great. So that would be it for me.
That's really cool. Were you able to like show him like, hey, here's these pieces you drew, you never thought you'd see again, I got them? Or I have not reached out to him yet because they did not come directly from him. They came from somebody else who worked with Playmates. But the artist knows he would remember them because he had photocopies of all of them. So I've seen these original arts before. It wasn't like I pulled out and go, oh my God, this is brand new. I've never seen this. So I've seen pictures of it, but to be able to acquire the actual original pencil that a friend of mine puts pencil to paper and back in 93 or something like that, right? It's pretty amazing in my head. That is amazing.
Your question when you're asking about kind of like, making connections and researching, that's actually been something that's been very helpful for our research. We'll come across a piece of art or a drawing with a signature or whatever, and we'll kind of track that person down and maybe send them images of things that they probably haven't seen in 15, 20 years. And that just kind of like sparks a relationship and opens up a lot of communication between new leads and new people to talk to, which happens pretty frequently with us.
It's funny, sometimes I'll ask somebody, do you remember doing the artwork on figure X? And like, I never did that. And then I'll send them a thing with their signature on it, and they're like, I guess I did do that. It's pretty funny. Like, I mean, it's 30 years, memory fades.
You think of how deep that toy line goes. Like, they probably don't remember half the stuff they drew for that.
Yeah,
toy
exactly.
Line. But yeah, the artwork's always cool because I mean that's essentially where it all started. It's before there was even the wax sculpt. There was the drawings, and some of the artists were just fantastic. I don't think I've seen many other toy lines that have as detailed and artistic and shaded artwork like the Ninja Turtles line does. The artists were just great. They put a lot of time into those renderings.
That wasn't like a toy line like a Star Wars where there's established characters and you only had so much to work with. Turtle line, they kind of just would sit down and come up with whatever they could think of and pitch it and see if it stuck. We saw some images today or this week for a nerd turtle, which obviously never got made, but the renderings for that were wild, man. They were really, really cool stages.
Really? I never heard of
it. Glasses and a pocket protector,
big calculator.
big calculator.
Was it Donatello?
I don't think it was labeled as which figure it was. And it was black and white, so who knows? Yeah. It was just like, nerd turtle.
I never knew about that. That's crazy. But yeah, that's awesome, man. So I think a lot of people might not know exactly like how things work. Because the show American Pickers is really popular. And a lot of people might think that's exactly how it works. Is that how this whole process works, or is it very different?
I mean, I guess it's in a way it's kind of similar. So I think a lot of us are drawn to doing this is because it's like that modern day treasure hunt. Obviously, we love the toys and we love the history, but there is a ton of fun in tracking this stuff down and getting out on going on trips and meeting different people, and then seeing what we can kind of unearth or what gets pulled out of a box next. So it is very American Picker-esque, I guess, in a sense. But it's twofold. It's 50% like the love of the toys and the history and learning, and the other is our collector roots where we want to acquire new things and see new things and see what's out there. So, but yeah, that process of kind of like finding things and then seeing if they're for sale and kind of negotiating and that all plays out pretty much just right on point with like the American Picker style or that Picker style of finding things.
We have photos and videos of things that you could probably, if you face swap me with Mike Wolf, you'd not even know it was it was like from the show. I mean,
sure, I don't want to sell at price.
Yeah, actually, we use some of their techniques sometimes. Actually, like,
really?
It's like, I don't want to sell it. Well, can I throw a number at you? Or I don't want to sell at price, or things like that. It's like some of those little tricks really can work sometimes. But yeah, I think that show is, a lot of people say, oh, it's all staged. I think obviously as they went further into the seasons, it got more popular, and probably they were getting calls from people to come out. There's probably got a little more staged, but I think a lot of that show is like legit because it feels real to me from my experience of what we do. It's like, it's crawling around under a house, with rat poop everywhere and pulling out a box and, going, what's in this thing? And, or getting in an attic there was one attic we climbed into. I kid you not. This was a little cubby attic. It was probably, I don't know, it was 4 foot by 3 foot.
Oh,
and went like 12 foot deep. And it was like, I was literally having to like get a box and like squeeze it past myself and put it here to hand it to somebody to take it. And it was up like a ladder to take it down the ladder and then go to the next box and squeeze it past me and push it this way. So it's like, all those crazy things they do I think is pretty accurate to how it really is.
That's good. None of you got hurt in that one. That sounds like someone could easily.
I was also climbing up and like on a ladder into some hanging metal racks from a ceiling too that probably weren't intended for human weight, but I was up there crawling around on a board, and sometimes it can be a little dangerous.
Yeah, I was in the rat poop.
He was in the rat poop inhaling. You had a mask.
We'll see what the long-term effects of that are.
Knee deep in the rat poop.
That was in the middle of COVID, so fortunately we had masks anyway. So
that's what you got to do if you ever have a biography just about doing this stuff. That's the title: Knee Deep in the Rat Poop.
Sure.
This would be your autobiography, Gary Borbidge, Knee Deep in the Rat Poop.
That sums it up. Yeah.
Hopefully, there's not a chapter at the end that says the health problems that came from being knee deep.
We'll leave that out.
I'm mutating to some type of rat.
Died at 58 from some kind of lung disease.
The ultimate Turtles collector. You became Master Splinter, the ultimate Turtles fan. So speaking of Turtles and like Playmates, that's like, mostly what we talk about is your Playmates finds of Turtles. Playmates did a lot of stuff back in the days that like wasn't the action figure line. Like they did like the football that looked like Raphael, and they had the hockey table that actually had all these little cool like figurines of Genghis Frog and everything in it. Do you guys ever come across that stuff? Do you care about finding that stuff, or is it just like action figure centric?
Yeah, we definitely come across that, and we also come across stuff from the other lines like Skeleton Warriors and Star Trek and Earthworm Jim and Toxic Crusader. And it's kind of weird once you get deep into like the prototype thing. Some guy will pull out a sculpt for some line you don't even know what it is and never seems like this thing's so cool just because it's like the original wax. Like it's this weird kind of clicking in your brain. It clicks over and you're like suddenly it's like almost like the part of the process becomes just as important as the actual line or the actual figure or the character. I think it's about like appreciation of the artwork. It's like, oh, this is the original art, a wax or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just this weekend we saw like the clay sculpt for the football, a couple
really?
wax sculpts for the baseballs, the little baseballs, and we saw the sculpt for the big the resin cast statues. You remember those? The Playmates put out 4 of those.
Yeah.
The big ones. There was a guy had the original sculpt for that. It was huge. It's needed a little bit of love, as some of these things do that are stored away.
Yeah.
But yeah, that stuff's always neat to see. As far as like collecting side, as Gary said, usually not super high interest unless it's it's just a really great price. But it's always kind of fun to look at and see.
And we're constantly keeping our eye out too for stuff that friends collect. Maybe not necessarily like turtle lines or other things, but these tertiary toy lines that especially Playmate stuff. Like we built some stuff. Was it the Savage Dragon or something like that yesterday, and Skeleton Warriors, and we come across that stuff quite a bit. And it's not necessarily something that we would be into, but we know people that are into it and dig it, and we'll try to connect those those dots and help those people out and stuff. So that happens.
That's cool. You guys are doing you're doing God's work for collectors.
You're welcome.
It's like it's kind of view it as like saving this histories, because you never know, like some guy maybe single or some woman maybe husband doesn't have any clue about this stuff and they pass away and they're like, clean out the house, or their kids, the parents pass away and the kids get the house and they're just like, just throw it on the dumpster. Like that has happened before.
Yeah,
and
it's sad.
Like we really feel like, we gotta, saving the history of this stuff is important because it was such a huge pop culture thing. The turtles and a lot of these other toy lines as well.
Yeah,
you definitely don't want this stuff to be lost forever.
Yeah, I mean it's cool when you have the original blueprints essentially for what brought so many kids from an entire generation joy. Like that's worth preserving in my mind. I think some people might laugh. I think preserving the artwork and the sculpts and everything for the Turtles line is just as important as preserving Picasso paintings.
Yeah,
we agree. That's why we kind of make that connection a lot. Like it's pop culture art.
Yeah.
But a lot of these artists need to be recognized for like what they did. I mean, it's not to them; it was a job, and we come across this like it was basically like the byproduct of a production process to get a product to market. So a lot of them think of it as like their art, but we now as collectors and looking back and appreciating pop culture, it's 100% in our opinion just as important as other pieces of art that are out there. And I think that we've had a lot of conversations with these toy artists, and we're kind of like making them come to that realization about how many people appreciate what they did and are like fans, huge fans. We've connected different artists and toy industry people with different podcasts and collector shows and conventions, and now they're like almost quasi like celebrity status with collectors. And prior to like Christian's book and like our book with the Star Wars for Kenner people, these people are now like on the circuit with these cons and different things like that, which is pretty cool to see. And we kind of feel we had a pretty big part in seeing that happen.
Yeah, you're
kind of these people out and introducing them to the collector community and their fans.
That's all. You guys are a massive part of it, and that's really cool. Like I said, you're not just doing God's work for the collectors. You're doing God's work for everyone involved. Because, like you said, for decades, the guys who drew the concept artwork for the Ninja Turtle action figures, and I mean even Star Wars, an even bigger franchise, most people didn't even know who the heck they were, and they didn't really get any recognition. And I mean they essentially illustrated our childhoods. So it's awesome to have them.
That's why in Rad Plastic, I tried my best to attribute every piece I could. Some of them I couldn't figure out, who drew it or who sculpted it, but every one I could figure out, I attribute it to the artist so that people know who did this, who was the artist behind this thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was my favorite part of the book. Actually, was all the concept artwork. Like I loved seeing the initial sculpts, the wax sculpts and everything, but my absolute favorite part was the concept artwork because you just see how the character changed, how many different artists were throwing around different ideas and what we could have gotten, and just you got to look into like how creative these guys were. They told them, draw a Japanese dragon character, and everyone came up with the crazy ideas for what he was going to be, and it was awesome. And
well,
thank God for you guys.
Cross your fingers, but I'm hoping that I'm going to be doing some things in the not near future, but the medium future with a lot more of the concept art I have, because I have a lot of concept art that never made the book. So,
Oh, nice.
like, like I said, that one guy had photocopies of everything he drew, and like I have, a huge stack, and other people had copies of a lot of artwork. So
That's awesome. I can't wait to see more of it. The more of that surfaces, the more exciting the whole scene gets, because you just learn more and more about this thing that we all love. And I guess I forgot to continue with that question. What's your favorite pieces you guys have ever found, TMNT wise? Ever.
Oh, geez. I guess I'll start. This goes back to one of our original stories. This is kind of the origin stories of, Chris and I and a couple friends that getting into like the turtle prototype game. We were actually researching the Kenner book, and we were visiting with a former Kenner employee in Ohio, of all places. And we're in her basement. We're kind of looking through some bins, and it was just like remote control car parts and
lots of horses.
Horses and dolls. I'm like, Chris, what are we doing here?
Some NASCAR cars and jackets.
So then we started getting kind of some more interesting stuff, and then we popped open a box, and I think one of the first things we pulled out of this box was a little. Sculptors tend to store their like sculpts, and we've come to learn, in these like the same size box. They're all identical, and they have these little wire tabs that keep the box shut. So at the time, I didn't know what it was. I popped this box open. I look into it. And it was what ended up being the original wax sculpt for the creature Leo figure. So I'm looking at it. I didn't know what I was looking at. I handed it over to Chris. He's like, "It's a Ninja Turtle," and so like, okay, this just got interesting. And we found out that there was some relation with former Playmates employee with the person we were dealing with, and we started going through more boxes. And the next thing we know, I think we uncovered that was probably the biggest like turtle prototype find of us being together. Before, I think there was one other that was a little bit bigger, but this started off. Just boxes full of painted hard copies and first shot action figures, all kinds of stuff. I think we went back there a couple times, and each time we went back there, we found new stuff and just different boxes we hadn't gone through. But I think that creature Leo sculpt for me is one that I held on to, and has a special place. One, because it was like the first thing that we found, and I'm a big Creature of the Black Lagoon fan, so that one for me, I think, is it.
But I'll add on a little bit to that story before I give my answer. But my one memory of it, Gary had like a headband light thing because it was down in the basement.
I was spelunking, man.
He was spelunking.
I was getting into it.
And so we had started like on the right side of the room, and that was the side that had all the crap, NASCAR and horses and all that. And then the box we found with that sculpt was sort of back on the complete other side of the room. And so like our other friend Matt, who's worked on all this stuff with us, he's like, I want to go over here and dig around in these boxes because that's where the one good piece came from. And so I was over still. I think we had found at that point some boxes of like just carded figures, turtles carded stuff. And so I was sort of going through those in this big empty open area in the middle. And Gary walks over to Matt, calls Gary over. Gary, come over here, get this box. I want to look into it. And Gary gets this box. He comes back and it's just this huge smile. And it's like, what is it? What is it? And he goes, all hard copies. And he had a bin, like those big Rubbermaid bins that are like 3 foot wide and like 2 foot deep. And I'm like, you're kidding me. That's all. He's like, all hard copies.
They're all painted. They're wrapped up individually.
Oh,
it was like
God.
that. Like that was like well, you can recognize now.
Yeah, because we had found a few things at that point, but it was like, the sculpt and 2 or 3 hard copies and maybe a couple first shots. And then he brought that bin over, and I remember that so clearly in my mind. You saying that as you walked over, we set that box down and tore into it, and it's like, I don't know how many were in there. 20 or 30.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It was a lot.
Cool. Each one was individually wrapped. They were
mostly painted.
That's awesome. That's the mother load right there.
So my answer. So the best thing I think Ninja Turtles wise. So we were this one.
I see April peeking in.
One. No, it's not this one, but we'll tell you a story about that one in a minute. So we were up here. It's actually the same guy we were just talking about that Gary got his wrestler guy from a couple trips back. We were visiting him, and we went over there and hung out for a little while. And I think we probably bought a few things. But anyway, he lives like pretty far away from downtown LA, so it's a little bit of a hike to his place. And we went up there like earlier in the weekend, and then like later that evening, he texts me and he's like, "I found this in the garage" or something like that. and he texts me a picture of the painted pitch turtle. And I'm
Okay.
like, are you kidding me? I'm like, are you interested in selling that at all? He's like, yeah, I probably would. I'm like, can we come back tomorrow? Like, we got a window like at 2:00 or whatever. And so he's like, sure. And so we went back up there and worked out a deal. And, you know, I now have a painted pitch turtle, which is like, I don't know, maybe my number one. There's only 2 or 3 pieces I think I've seen that I think can compete with that. So that was probably the best thing, I think.
What were the ones that can compete?
It's an okay. Gary's like, it's an okay piece.
That was the one when we saw you last time. You were in front of your collection. Me and Eric, we were like, "Is there anything you want to see?" Me and Eric were instantly like, "That
Yeah.
we want to see that."
Yeah, but that was so cool because it was like completely unexpected. You know, sometimes you have things you're like, oh, I know kind of what's there, and I'm gonna go and see it. We're trying to get some stuff, and sometimes there's things like that pop up that, like, you know, 5 minutes ago I never would. If you told me I would be looking at this now, I would have told you you're crazy, and yet here I am. You know, so those are the ones that are kind of fun when you find or pull something out of a box that's just sort of shocking. You know.
Yeah. I mean,
a lot
they
of it's
didn't
completely that random too. So we'll like the pitch turtle thing. So we've probably gone through the same sources or different people we've talked to like numerous times. And every time we go back looking for stuff, we'll find like incredible stuff in the most random boxes, and it's like in pieces. And like there's an arm in one box, we find the leg for it in another box, and it's just like, again, it's going back to that kind of saving things and rescuing things from. A lot of the stuff was not kept in the best conditions, or like kind of just tossed in a box, or was in a drawer, or like. Parts and pieces are here. The other parts are somewhere else. But yeah, just a random phone call like that. Oh, I just happened to find this in a drawer, and it's like probably one of the best turtle pieces. And that's just how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the holy grail of one of. I mean, I think there was like 4 of those produced. I think one in each color. That's like
there's definitely more than 4 because there's a picture of 4 of them painted from a old video somewhere from Mirage, and then. The one I have doesn't. Those look like they're very different colors. Like not quite the sort of Crayola 8-box red, purple, green and blue, but like more tealish and on one, and the purple's a little more lavender. And so, but maybe it's just a bad video and the color timing is off, possibly. But there was at least 4 because there's a picture I have of 4 of them all sitting together. But I suspect there was probably maybe a few more than that. But there's only 2 I know 100% sure exist, and 1 other rumored one I've heard of that I've not confirmed or seen a picture of.
Okay, and they're all essentially Donatello, but colored like the different turtles, correct?
Yeah, because they're all the bow staff. But yeah, they painted them all with 4 different colors.
I know I've seen Mike on the Netflix Toys That Made Us. The Mike colored one was on there.
Right. Yeah, the Mike one and the Donatello I have are the 2 I know for sure still exist. So.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. So we talked about the most interesting pieces you found, but you're going to all these crazy places to find these things. What's the most interesting place you found product in?
I'll take that one. I don't think you were there for this one, but so this one lead got a hold of him. And he was like, well, why don't you meet me at my work? I'm like, okay. Well, where's your work? It's the Museum of Natural History in Los Angeles. So we roll up in there, and we're waiting in like this room of art, like old, I don't know what it was, but there's this gigantic painting on the wall, like 12 foot tall, and this intricate like framing. And the guy walks in and he looks like he just walked out of a Jurassic Park film set. I mean, he's got like that's the kind of vibe he had, like khakis and millions of pockets, right? And we started talking to him, and he told us basically, yeah, see this frame here, like this isn't like a 150-year-old frame, and it was busted here, and I fixed it all up. But anyway, he had brought some of his stuff there. But the more interesting thing is he took us up to the dinosaur bone cleaning area. And we got to do a backstage tour of all the dinosaur bones that the museum was currently processing. So it's like we're literally sitting there like, you want to hold it? Like, there's a dinosaur bone in my hand. And there's this person sitting there at this desk just like literally with these tiny little tools. And you can see this bone is only like 10% out. I'm like, it's going to take you 2 years to get that bone out with those tools. I'm like, what? Like, oh man, what a tedious job. I'm like, but it's fulfilling to them, I suppose. But then he took us like up on the roof, and on the roof of the museum, they have an area where they're cleaning the bigger stuff and there's like some, it's like covered, but it's exposed to the outdoors, and there's a whole cleaning area up there. So yeah, it was kind of cool. And then he takes us back down to the main cleaning area, which was like behind this glass where the visitors could walk by the outside, but we're on the inside, right?
Okay.
Like behind the scenes, and that's where he's like, "Here's my desk over here," and he pulls out these hard copies and lays them on his desk. And it's like, this is just so surreal right now. We're in like a natural, history museum and looking at dinosaur bones and Ninja Turtles hard copies.
It was Turtles. I was going to ask what toy line. It was Turtles, though.
Yeah, it was Turtles. Yeah, he had like a Kung Fu.
Dino Turtles.
Yeah, they're all Dino Turtles. No, they weren't. He didn't have any Dino Turtles. No, I remember he had like an Irma and a Kung Fu Rocksteady and like a Deep Sea Leo. He only had maybe half a dozen things, but
okay.
But they were pretty cool. But that was probably the sort of the craziest place we ever went. Unless you have another one.
No, I just think story for me it goes back to the rat poop story. We were under a house up in Northern California and digging around, and we knew that the person had some good stuff. We'd bought some good stuff from them before, and he said, "I got more boxes of stuff under the house. I have no idea what's under there." And it's gross, man. It is like every box is like rat nests in it and like poop. And we earned it that day. We definitely earned it. So
we have to tell the funny part of the story.
So we start pulling out boxes, and the next thing you know, we open up a box, and we open up it was literally I think it was a plastic bag, and it was the original wax sculpt for PandaCon. I think it was the first one we pulled out.
Like literally out of this crawl space under a house.
Like again, talking about saving. There was literally rat poop in the box with the original wax sculpt for PandaCon. And then we started pulling out like sculpt after sculpt.
This is like one of those surprising moments where you're like, I had no idea we were going to see anything. What's under here? And you're pulling out maybe some of the most amazing pieces you've ever seen, and like had no clue that this was what we were going to be seeing that day.
Then there was a total of like 7 or 8
waxes
eight original wax sculpts for like the early stuff. Really amazing stuff.
Fugitoid / Metalhead.
Oh wow.
Triceratops, PandaCon, Usagi. Space Usagi, Scumbug.
Oh, that's a huge haul.
All these, they were all under this house. Like literally, in the crawl space is only like 4 foot high, so you're hunkering down like this, right? You can't even stand up in there.
We found like a Kentucky Fried Chicken, like the tub where you get the chicken in, full of just like hard copy parts and like wax sculpt parts. Again, we had to like find. Okay, here's the head. This box over here, and they were like all over the place and mixed matched, and we had to like piece stuff together. But for me, that was probably I don't know if it was maybe it's not like a strange location, but it was strange that these things that were so incredible were in such a like terrible condition.
I was wondering. I got a question just about. See, I don't know the wax they use. I don't know how sturdy it is, so I know like it's delicate, but is there a way like having the rat poop in there with it could like kind of deteriorated over time. It kind of like affected, like kind of rots.
I think more temperature conditions, obviously, it would be great. If something got into it and we're chewing on it, we've had that happen too. We've come across like really incredible like packaged toys, like when they're chewed up or they're insect infested, stuff like that happens.
Most of these were in like at least in a baggie or in one of those sculptor boxes. So the waxes at least were. Or they were wrapped in some bubble wrap, so they were pretty okay. And those were inside a box, so the box may have had like cat pee on the top, but it didn't soak down into the inside.
I was picturing like actual rat pellets on the figures.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like that. They were stored. It wasn't like they were just thrown in a box and rats were literally crawling on them. Okay. It's just like the outer boxes they were in. So the whole place just looked obviously smaller, but like the last scene of Indiana Jones, which is boxes everywhere, right? Just boxes and boxes and boxes. And some of them you open up and it's just crap in them, like nothing, like an old toaster and a clock and some Christmas ornaments, and the next one is like the PandaCon sculpt. So it's like crazy.
A lot of times they'll close down, like if they worked at a studio or they had a desk somewhere, or whatever. They basically like clear out their desks, whatever was in different drawers or on the desk or on a shelf. all just kind of went in a box. Like you get fired, you got to fill your banker box up with your desk and leave. Not saying that these guys were fired. I'm just saying like they cleaned it out like that, kind of
if you're moving,
moving out type stuff, and they would just throw random things in boxes, and we literally found parts of sculpts in with pens and desk stuff and whatever, and we had to like match it up and find the rest of it in other boxes and stuff like that. So there was no rhyme or reason to some of it, which was again wild to come across.
No,
that's crazy. And I know you said in the last interview we did that some of the wax sculpts don't exist anymore because they melted them down and made new wax sculpts out of them, right?
Yeah, that can happen. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly ones that we don't know that exist still. I mean, we're pretty certain the original 4 turtles from '88, those were done in twice upscale, and we were told that those waxes actually got shipped to Playmates in Hong Kong. So, and those are probably long gone.
Yeah.
So those don't exist. Some of the early ones, the 2 studios that did it, Varner and Anaglyph. So I know some of those Anaglyph sculpts like surfaced like 15 years ago and got distributed through the collector community. And so some of them are out there somewhere. I expect some of the ones I've never seen still exist somewhere. Some collector's got them squirreled away. Some private person that doesn't want to, show or share them has got some of these things from, especially the Anaglyph ones. But yeah, some of them are probably just gone forever, so you never know. But then suddenly it'll turn up. I mean, we had one that was like a guy I'd talked to, and he's like, I don't really have anything. And then we were coming out here one time, and just coincidentally, he emails me out of the blue, like 2 weeks before coming out. It's like, hey, I got this storage unit I want to clean out. Like, I think I might have some stuff in there. Why don't you come out? And we came out there, and sure enough, in that storage unit, the only sculpt that guy had was the pizza face.
Oh, really?
It's like that one was like not with any of the sculptors you thought it would have been with. It was this random business manager guy had it, and he was a sculptor too, but he kind of turned into the business manager of that studio in the end. And so it's like, well, there's the pizza face. You never know. You might find somebody tomorrow pulls a box out of their closet like, oh, I forgot this was up here, and in there is one of these, a sculpt or a hard copy you haven't seen, or a paint master maybe that had been missing or nobody had ever seen. Like, I've never seen a painted Monty Moose hard copy, for example. Cool. It's one of the ones I was like, yeah, it's like, I've never seen one. This, I don't know. Maybe it's out there somewhere.
Yeah, probably somewhere. I mean,
Chinese food takeout container.
Yeah, the pizza face sculpt was in a clear Chinese plastic takeout container, just laying in there all by itself. No, like anything around it to protect it, just right in there.
I know you got that one because I know we were lucky enough to see that one in the last interview we did, where you can the hat is like a separate piece and you can see the whatever that was, his twin brother.
Head, second head. Yeah.
But when you think about how fragile they were, how much they must have reused wax, and just the fact that like it's so hard to believe any of these survived, it's a miracle you can find a haul with like Scumbug and Fugitoid and Triceraton and all these figures, wax sculpts in there. That is like, that is like just the mother haul right there. That's like
Well, the fortunate thing is, I think in particular for the turtles, I think maybe because they were a little bit later. I mean, the sculptors always like to keep their work, but a lot of them would keep it in a hard copy form. Like they'd make one for themselves. Like, okay, I sculpted this. I'm going to make a hard copy and I'm going to keep the hard copy. But for some reason, it seems like in the Turtles line, even more so than maybe Star Wars or some of the other lines, that sculpts are tough to come by. Like they really had this idea that like these need to be kept. And so there's a lot of them that are kept. I would guess, I don't know, what do you think percentage wise Turtle sculpts still exist? Probably more than 50%.
Yeah, I'd say 60-ish, 65%.
Yeah, that's a lot. Still exist.
That's great.
Studio stuff.
Yeah, so yeah, certainly Varner, the stuff, the turtleies, Varner tended to do the turtle type figures, and Anaglyph tended to do the other animals and the villains.
Oh, okay.
So I think, from the Varner side, probably more like 70-80% of sculpts might still exist. But Anaglyph, it's hard to tell because, like I said, those got sold by Anaglyph like 10, 15 years ago, and they just out into the world. But, I've talked to some people and seen some pictures of some of the ones, and so they're definitely out there.
See, I never even knew it was 2 different studios. Like I never would have known because they're so similar in the way they do the crazy detail and everything. But
and then there was also other random people that did contract work. There was a studio in Cincy that did a couple figures. There was some freelance guys that Varner and Anaglyph would contract out to when they got too busy. They're just individuals that would do one or two here or there. So, but yeah, those two studios did the like 90% of them, or contracted out.
That time period was like the heyday for, when people were still sculpting, in wax and clays and stuff like that. Prior to the move over to like CAD and digital drawing and digital sculpting, that was like the heyday. So these guys had more work sometimes than they could handle, and they would send it out to friends and other sculptors and people.
Some freelance guys, that like did work for all the toy companies.
Yeah, it's understandable. I mean, when Playmates orders like, we need 80 new figures and accessories this year, it's like you got to get some outside help. You can't do it all.
Right.
So, that's a great point too. All the accessories, the detail and work that went in just the accessories that we've seen are almost as intricate and detailed as the figure themselves, and would probably take almost as much time. And because it's a smaller scale and it's so much, there's so much fine detail that went into them. If you take that into account as well, you're talking astronomical.
And they're doing Trek, they're doing Earthworm Jim, they're doing Skeleton Warriors, they're doing Toxic Crusaders,
Star Trek. They did Star Trek.
Yeah, they're doing all those lines all at once at some point, right?
Yeah.
Darkwing Duck, was another one.
Playmates. Yeah,
that was Playmates. They had some wrestling lines one year. Like, it was. You take all that into account, you're like, wow, they sculpted a lot of stuff during that. Those two studios did a lot.
And Playmates, they never just stopped at just a really good sculpt. Like, I think of the Darkwing ones. A lot of those figures, like Megavolt, Bushroot, they look just like the characters on screen, but then they always worked in some crazy action features also, like into the figures. So like they were the masters at not only doing cool action features, but not ruining the look of the figure.
The aesthetic,
yeah.
Except for some of the mutations.
Oh yeah, the mutating turtles.
Some of the mutations, I was like, I kind of ruined the look. But yes, in general, you're right. I agree with you. They did a great job on that for the most part.
Right above me, I have the whole line of Earthworm Jim still sealed. I love those Earthworm Jim figures. Those sculpts were so crazy on those figures. So they were a little bigger than the turtles, but they were just as detailed and nuts. So.
For sure.
So what's your favorite part of the whole journey? Like both of you guys, like what's your personal favorite part of the journey?
Oh man, I when I look back at it and think of over time, it's really like the fact that I'm doing it with like some of my best friends in the whole world. My wife comes along sometimes too, and I don't know, maybe that sounds trite, but all I know is that like when I look through like Rad Plastic myself as a book, the page I gravitate to is the end where I see the pictures of me and Matt and Gary and Steven and Melinda and the different sculptors and the people, and like I have the memory of like one guy lived in Big Sur and he runs a yurt hotel. Like, I mean, it's like pulling into a yurt hotel and going to this guy's house that he has on site, and driving all the way up and down the coast, or, going to Cincinnati or wherever it is. It's like the memories of doing this is it's definitely the highlight of the whole thing. I mean, the memories of like pulling out a sculpt are really great memories, but it's like really the people that, in the end, I think are what sticks with me.
That's cool. The friends you make basically along the way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of these guys that there's a few of them that I've met that like I would legit I'm not talking to Gary. I'm talking like the Playmates people that worked for them or some of the studios that, I'll just call and chat with once a month. I just literally have become good friends of mine, and
that's awesome. Just
get along. Not everybody, of course, and it's only a small percentage of them, but the ones I just connect with, I just, it's great. It's like, I've made a new lifelong friend here, in addition to, having some cool things I was able to put in my collection.
Yeah. So. And we were talking earlier about the impact that all this stuff has and how much it means to a lot of people, but then it's even like outside of just being a fan and growing up with it and stuff, like it's brought so many people together. It's made a lot of good friendships and stuff. So
yeah, collecting does that. I think that's, if you're collecting in a void, I think you're doing it wrong. Like, get out there, meet people, go to conventions, get on groups. And I can say face to face is so much better than like, just online. Like whenever I travel for my day job, like I'll look around and see if there's any collectors I know in the area. It's like, hey, you want to go get dinner tonight? things like that, or can I come over and see your collecting room or whatever? I mean, just getting together face to face. I really wish there was a huge convention for turtles, like there's the Star Wars Celebration, or like if the community would just pick somewhere. It's like, hey guys, Atlanta, Dragon Con or whatever it is where we're gonna meet every year. Like that is the turtle place. It's not an official con, but it's our unofficial meeting place, and like start getting everybody to come out there. I don't know how to get that rolling, but
I don't know. Eric,
I'd love to have something like that going on where it's like there is a place where yearly they sort of congregate and meet face to face, because so many people I know like chat with a lot I've never met face to face.
Eric and I were saying it when many times in the past, like we can't believe with how big Turtles is that there's no designated Turtles con. Like there's Power Con for He-Man, there's Mighty Morphicon for Power Rangers and everything. There's nothing for Turtles.
No sense.
Celebration. Star Wars.
Yeah.
Other than that one in Connecticut or wherever that guy does the Celebration, but it doesn't feel like it's that big. He's not like
it's not Power Con.
It needs to be like Nickelodeon run, right? Like Nick needs to do it, or something. I don't know.
Somebody, yeah.
I'm surprised too. I wish there was one because I would love to go there.
Yeah. I guess the whole scene has to come together. The guy from Old Turtle Den has to talk to Playmates and talk to Viacom, and everyone's got to decide to make it happen. But it's up to the fans, I guess. But that's
like I said, we could just all pick one. We could go, hey, this one's this is the one, whatever that happens to be, and it's a con for something else.
We're gonna
just descend on it every year, right?
We're gonna hijack Dragon Con. But Dragon Con, I have to say, from what I've seen, I've never been to it. They have the best cosplay.
Yes, I've been to it a couple times. Yes, the cosplay is insane. Yeah, that's more a game. That probably wouldn't be the right choice because it's more of a gaming convention, so there's not a lot of toy dealers. You'd want to pick one that had a lot of toy dealers at it.
Yeah,
people want to go and buy stuff too, and you want the toy dealers there. But I don't know what it would be.
I don't know. I'm not a big con guy.
Yeah, not a big con guy. I can definitely understand where you're coming from with the experience of buying it though, because there's been times with like Super 7, like I have back there, like you pre-order the wave, it comes in the mail, you put it on a shelf, you forget about it. It's like I love looking at them, but there's something different about actually going out in the wild to a convention or a toy store or something and talking with the guy there and getting to know him and buying it in person. I have friends who will be with me and they're like, you can get that cheaper on eBay. And I'm like, I know, but I'm always going to remember this.
Have an experience here too. Yeah,
exactly. So I 100%.
It's like the difference between like shopping and collecting. It's like, I mean, I'm not disparaging shopping type style, but I'm just saying like the shopping is just like you said. You're like, I go, I buy it, it shows up, I put it on a shelf. Okay, well that's fine. And if you enjoy that, that's great. And I do that for some things, but I just feel like there's a deeper level that I really more call collecting, where it's like that. Like there's a story here, whatever it is. I went to a con, I ran by this guy in this booth and he dug it out of a box underneath, or whatever it is. Or I was, with my buddy and we went to this random toy shop and we found this thing, and those are the ones I really like. I love when the collection has a story behind it, rather than you just come and look at this. And because then when I go to somebody's house and see their things, or when they come to mine, like that's what I want. I want to go, where did you get that? Tell me about this, And if your whole thing is, well, I bought it, I got on eBay and I put it up there. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. Not real great, interesting other than to look at it. But you add that depth of it's cool, it's fun to look at. And let me tell you the story about how I got it. Like,
it's not just bragging rights. It actually means something to you.
Yeah, it means something. Exactly.
Yeah. And what about you, Gary? What's your favorite part of the hunt?
I would say I'm going to piggyback off what Chris said, because we actually had this conversation somewhat during this trip. It was basically kind of like, what's the end game for your collection, right? So look, everybody collects for a different reason, and everybody collects different things and in different ways. But like when's we talk about like when's the right time to like maybe part with your collection, or like because I have kids, they don't want any of my stuff. They don't want any of my like dad's toy junk, and but again, I do it for the experiences, and I sometimes associate a certain piece with a, kind of in the line what we're talking about, like a time and experience, a trip, a meeting with somebody. So like I collect and save things more for that versus any other reason. I kind of, I'm not a completist in any sense. I kind of have random kind of things that I really enjoy owning because I remember acquiring them. I remember a good time with friends or a cool experience. So that I think I'll have a harder time, parting with things or letting things go because of that connection. Yeah. So, I mean, they all mean something to me nostalgia wise. Again, like why do we collect? Everybody has their own kind of like, thought behind that. But I think a lot of it's nostalgia. A lot of it's, kind of that, that collector mentality, whether you either have it or you don't. You have other people like, why do you collect all this shit? Like, the people like want to like get rid of everything. We're like, we're trying to like acquire more junk all the time.
You could buy a Louis Vuitton purse with that.
Exactly. Yeah. So people equate that to like, the other things that they could spend.
They could spend it on.
So they just, a lot of people don't understand why we do what we do. Right. So, but I think that's probably my favorite part is the connection with people, the experiences. Obviously I love the like kind of modern day treasure hunt behind, kind of our trips and what we do and digging through, boxes and unearthing, treasure and modern toy treasure. And that's for me, I think is my favorite part, but it has to be, it's not the stuff, it's the experience and it's the connection with the different people. And you kind of just going on these adventures for me.
Yeah. That's awesome. Absolutely. Cause I mean, a lot of, as collectors, obviously we're on totally different planes of collecting, but as collectors, like people like me and people like you guys, like a lot of times we are just getting stuff. And every now and then you take that moment where you stop and you do separate in your head what has value and what is just stuff.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
For me, the vintage like turtles is never going to just be stuff. That's always got value. And, that's what I started doing on YouTube was just making these videos. I didn't think anyone would care about them. I mean, I'm not a huge YouTuber, but they're my most popular videos where I just go over each figure from each year, and I don't talk about how rare it is or how much it costs or any of this. I talk about, hey, when I was a kid, I remember getting this and I lost it in a pool and all these stupid stories about my childhood with each figure. And I get comments all the time from people saying like, I can't wait for you to do more of these. Like, I love hearing these stories, and they tell me their stories, and I start hearing all their personal connections. And that's really what makes collecting, important is like the memories we have attached to them. So
Exactly.
if you just have a bunch of stuff with nothing attached to it, then it's like, I just have stuff, even if it's all
stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like no different than my silverware drawer. You know what I mean? It's just like it's stuff.
Exactly. It looks like Raphael. I love Raphael, but I have no connection to it. So it's like this Raphael someday might get sold, whereas like the vintage one won't. So
there's some like silverware utensil collector out there that's going to listen to this and go, "You guys don't understand.
Get it?
You don't understand spoon collecting.
You can't get
3 prongs on it. Don't you get it?
You can't get the cheap new stuff. It's not actually silver. You gotta get the real silver stuff.
There is a thing for like antique spoon collecting. I know.
Yeah, I mean, you might have a connection to it. Maybe their grandma served dinner with
exactly.
really specific types.
Or there's a history behind whatever it is. Yeah, that's the thing. Like as humans, we're all about the story, right?
Yeah, exactly. We all have our own thing, whether it's baseball cards or spoons or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles action figures. We all have our we all have those things that we just look at them and they just instantly remind us of a fun story in our head or a nice, warm, cozy story in our head. So, speaking of kind of like what we were talking about there with the end game, though, not necessarily the end game, but just in the future, are there any pieces you're like really hoping to find? Like, are there certain grails, turtles or not? I guess we're talking about turtles right now, but you can say anything if it's not turtles. That like you're just really dying to find like this specific thing, like you know it's out there, or even if you don't know it's out there, is there something that like you would love to be pleasantly surprised by finding out that it exists?
I think for me, for turtle wise, I think I know that I've seen images of it, the sculpt for Mutagen Man. I know that there's images of it. I have certain pieces of Mutagen Man stuff that I would love to see that piece surface though. I'd like to see the original wax sculpt for that turn up. But I don't have high hopes for it. Like it's an anaglyph sculpt and who knows where that stuff is, but that's something I would love. Of all the turtle stuff, I'd love to see that turn up.
I wonder how that wax sculpt was done, because he's transparent, most of him, like the middle. So is it just a solid like piece of wax that's shaped like the body?
Yeah, so I've seen images of there's a one image of the like kind of front of the sculpt that's out there. We can send it to you if you want to include it in the show. But I have a hard copy front and back, and that's it's solid. So that would mimic what the sculpt would be, because they would have casted that and they would have poured hard copy. So it's a hollow shell, 2 hard copy half that kind of goes together. But it's obviously the shape of the outer shape. But I think when they did the actual toy, they just shot it in clear plastic, to be able to see the insides of them.
Yeah,
So
that would be an awesome find. I think Mutagen Man was like a fan favorite for most of us because just such a unique figure. So
absolutely, yeah. So that's one for me. I'd like to see turn up.
Awesome.
I'll give you two. One that almost certainly does not exist, and one that probably has a possibility of existing. The one that has a possibility is the Metal Mutant Bebop. So I have the armor for it, like all the armor pieces that come off and turn into the spirit animal or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do not have the figure. So
okay.
I would love to have that figure. I have the Rocksteady, the full thing, the figure and the armor, which was unproduced, but not the Bebop. So if that figure ever turned up, I don't know where it would be. It's probably not very likely, but has a shot. The one that almost certainly doesn't exist, I would love to have the model for the Pop Can Racer. I don't know if you know about that unproduced toy, but it's supposed to be literally put a soda can in the back and shake it up and put it in the back, and then the thing would puncture it and that would send it flying, which is like a fantastic idea for a kid and a horrible idea for a parent, right? And who's spending the money? It's not the kid. So it never got made. But I just, my toy engineering background, just loved that idea. And
can you imagine though? Can you imagine asking your mom as a little kid, like, "Hey, come on, can we get a new 6-pack of Cokes?" She's like, "Okay." It's like, "No, I'm not going to drink it. I want to spray it all over the house with my toy."
Yeah, not only the mess that it makes, but you're literally buying your kid's soda just to run the thing, right?
What's the Mentos? And Mento like soda rocket. That'd be.
If you had a dog, they'd be licking the carpet where it was and the walls and everything. My mom didn't even let me get gack because she said it was going to get all over the walls and leave stains and stuff, which it did in other kids' houses. So good on her.
We have photographs of that prototype, but I seriously doubt it exists. I believe it was made in Hong Kong at Playmates headquarters, and space is at a premium in that city, and so stuff doesn't tend to be just stored away and kept. They just pitch stuff because the real estate's too expensive to just keep. Warehouses are full of things. So unless some random employee just kind of loved it and took it home and put it in their closet, it's almost certainly gone.
Or maybe they sold it to somebody, but
I don't know. Back in the day, though, that kind of stuff, nobody, it was just material that was used to get to the final thing. Nobody thought about it as being something that would be collectible or valuable. It was just part of the process,
And nobody had value for brand new turtle toys at that time anyway. So it's like no one was buying that sort of stuff. So
so it's probably gone. But I would love to find that piece.
Well, I'm holding out hope that one day you guys will get into a basement and you'll find the wax figure of Mutagen Man seated on the prototype.
That's a great idea.
With the soda can already there.
But then if it comes like that, we'll have to leave it like that. So we'll have to fight over who gets the whole package.
He's full of like old stale Pepsi inside the clear.
It'll be Crystal Pepsi circa 1993.
I like it.
Exactly.
That stuff was terrible.
Wasn't it just regular Pepsi, just without the sludge color?
I don't know. It tasted different.
I do remember that though. Holy crap.
I said I liked it as a kid because it was different, and you just like anything that's different as a kid.
Sure.
Right.
It felt more refreshing, even though it probably wasn't.
The Sprite of Pepsis.
And I guess we kind of already touched on this, but I'm kind of curious. How much would you say, like percentage wise, obviously you don't know, this is just an educated guess, but how much would you think is still out there that hasn't been discovered as far as prototypes go?
Oh, I think probably most of it has been. We had, I would say, 2 or maybe you could say even 2.5, like major finds. That first one Gary talked about in the basement. Another one, which was a major Playmates marketing person that was around for a long time. He had a ridiculous amount of stuff. And then one other guy has probably, the third level, not nearly as much as the first two. And then everybody else we've talked to is like a smattering of things here or there, generally, a couple things, a few sketches, or a hard copy or two, or, whatever, packaging materials or whatever.
Yeah.
But I would be shocked at this point if there was any like massive new source of stuff where just somebody comes out and it's like, oh, I've got, these 20 bins are all full of Turtles prototype stuff. That would really shock me. I think we've sort of talked to all the people that might be
In the U.S. anyway, I think
In
the
the
possibility would be if there's some type of like giant stash somewhere
in Asia, in
Yeah.
China. I agree. That would be the only place that but I've talked to people at Playmates in China, and they tell me, none of that stuff's around,
Yeah.
It was all trashed, but who knows, maybe, the company officially trashed it, but some employee just grabbed a bunch of it and threw it. Could be. I doubt it, but yeah, I think so. My guess would be to put a number on it. Probably 90% of the stuff is at least known. It's not out in the collecting community yet. There are still people we know that have lots of things that they're not selling.
Yeah.
But at least what we know is out there and where it is. In addition to what the collectors have, it's probably 90%.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I would say, like, if you told me, well, if you say how much stuff is in collectors' hands out of all of it, that's probably 70%. So there's a good deal of stuff that people still have that just aren't selling yet. There's quite a bit. But
no, I agree. I think that we have a pretty good idea. I mean, doing this for as long as we've been doing it, I have a pretty good idea on like where things are, what things are still available or exist at least, and then there's still always those question mark pieces. Like we kind of talked about a couple of them. They could be out there, maybe, but hopefully they turn up. But I think percentage wise, I think Chris is pretty accurate with his numbers.
Yeah, there's always like the people you can't find. I mean, there's several people I'm like, man, this would be a great lead. I think, not like have 20 bins full, but like could really have some great stuff and might have 10 things that are astounding, but I can't find them. Like tried, especially people with common names, like Mike Jones, like, oh my God, how am I going to find a Mike Jones, right?
Yeah.
Like from 30 years ago that lived in LA, like that's almost impossible unless you get some kind of somebody that stayed in contact with that person and can help you find, already knows where they're at. Almost impossible. But, but there's other ones, even, more uncommon. I just can't find them. Several sculptors I cannot find, never been able to talk to them. A couple executives from Playmates back in the day that I, either can't find or won't talk to me. So it's like, well, could they have some stuff in their basement? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So, there's maybe one or two executives that could have some stuff squirreled away that could be a fairly substantial thing that like they just refuse to. There's a couple of guys who just refuse to talk to anybody. I think they're just older and they're like, I don't care. Like, why are you bothering me? That kind of.
Yeah, I could see it. Like, that's just something.
But that type of personality probably also didn't keep anything. You know what I mean?
Probably, yeah.
So it's like if they're like, I don't even want to talk about this crap. They probably didn't keep anything, right? Like,
yeah. If they just do that,
I left that behind.
Business we did 30 years ago, I don't think they care. Yeah. So.
Right. Exactly. So.
Well, if you guys ever do find this amazing haul in Asia and you find all these rarities and stuff, I'm hoping you remember the Party Wagon podcast and you come here first to talk about it.
You can do that.
You guys mind if I do some questions outside of the realm of turtles?
Sure.
So I just wanted to ask, I think I know probably both your number ones, but what are, just out of curiosity, what are your favorite toy lines of all time?
Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars.
I knew you were both going to say Star Wars.
Yeah. Number two, I'd probably put a tie between Turtles and Darkwing.
Okay.
I really like the Darkwing duck line. What was your number two? Do you have a number two?
No,
is there a number two?
Yeah, no, I think Turtles would be number two.
Okay.
Just because I mean, how much interest I have in it and how much I've, gotten into it in the past 5-6 years. If I'm being completely, transparent, I really didn't play with this stuff as a kid. I was kind of grew out of toys by the time Turtles was coming around. But I know my younger cousins and family members had played with it and stuff like that. But once I started getting into, this project with Chris, I found a great appreciation for the line. And I think, again, more because of the people that we started meeting that worked on it. And that kind of sparked, that appreciation and interest in it for me.
That's awesome. So I know you said the same thing in our last interview that like Turtles wasn't really something you grew up with. Like you watched the cartoon, but you didn't really you weren't like super into Turtles growing up.
Yeah, I was past the boys, but I kept watching cartoons well into my college years. But yeah, I was certainly beyond toys, playing with toys at that time. But yeah.
Yeah. I know the Darkwing.
I watched, like Darkwing was on when I was in college, right?
Yeah.
I'd do my homework, college homework, and watch Darkwing Duck. and Turtles would come on sometimes too. So I just that would be like running in the background as I was doing my calculus homework. Right?
You missed the whole concept of college, man.
You got to do homework sometime.
Yeah. Okay.
While watching Darkwing Duck. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
That's awesome. But hey, I mean, that's kind of commonplace now. It's weird because I know, like, when I was growing up, like, you know, adults would kind of frown on someone college age watching cartoons, but like everyone does it now. No one cares now. So
Yeah.
the world has
Well,
changed.
they make lots of cartoons for adults now too, and I think that
That's
kind of
true.
just broke the stigma in general.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. I think there's even a lot of like kids cartoons that are written for adults, and then kind of they see how they can dumb it down for kids. Like, how can we put
They
this on
throw a
Cartoon
little joke
Network?
or two in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Little
So-
Easter eggs for the parents.
Which I guess kind of started in the 90s. A lot of the jokes, like Animaniacs and stuff, was written more for adults, and then like they figured out how they can make it digestible for kids afterwards. But are there any toy lines you guys want to get into like this, like deep dive into, that you haven't so far? Like any ones that really spark your interest?
Not that jump out.
Not really. I mean, I played with a lot of the stuff as a kid, with like G.I. Joe and Thundercats and all that, but it's nothing really interests me as much as, like, I don't have as much of a nostalgia connection with any other toy line except for, like, really, primarily Star Wars is like where my heart is. And now again, this stuff, because of the recent these recent quests that we've been on have sparked out, but not really. I don't really have the urge. I have pieces here and there for other toy lines, like say like the LJ and Russell stuff, some Remco Monster stuff, some more obscure toy lines that I have individual pieces of that, again, I acquired during a trip or during some type of, when we were looking for other things and they popped up, but nothing that I would go out and seek intentionally and try to find.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no chance of like a deep dive of what Cowboys of Moo Mesa at any point.
Well, we did go visit Ryan Brown, so, and that was his IP, so which he recently sold to Nacelle. Nacelle now has the Cowboys of Moo Mesa.
You will see more Cowboys of Moo Mesa.
Yes, so I don't know what they're doing with it, but they're picking up all kinds of licenses. They picked like the Barnyard Commandos up and Sectars and Max Steel or whatever, and so who knows? Maybe we'll see some more Cowboys of Moo Mesa toys.
Maybe. But I know Premium DNA just did a line of Barnyard Commandos, and they look nice actually. They're pretty good quality.
Yeah. I think those were all done through Nacelle in some kind of partnership.
Yeah,
because we were out at visiting them last time we were out here. We went over to see Brian Volkweiss over there at Nacelle. They're the guys that did the Toys That Made Us on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were there, and he's like, "Here's the Barnyard Commando prototypes," and they were really cool. I'm like, I don't want to collect these, but I'm like, these are really cool.
Yeah, they were weird.
They got biker mice too.
Oh, biker mice from Mars. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I brought this up on the podcast, I think like a few episodes ago or something. I don't remember when it was, but I've never met anybody who confirms that this toy line existed, but I remember it coming out in the early 90s. Have you guys ever come across anything for Snailians?
Never heard of it. Except I remember you mentioned it on the podcast a couple episodes back.
Okay, so it's still
slow.
That's pretty slow.
It's still lost to time. So I think they were like, what's that?
Doesn't sound very exciting to play with.
They were like,
snail toys. The snail race car set probably didn't go over too well.
I never had one, but I remember
didn't make it.
The parents loved it. Like, here's your snails. Go play for 5 hours.
Your quiet snail toys.
Go race them. No cheating with salt. Just race for real.
Oh, the jokes.
Yeah, Salt Man was the evil enemy.
Salt Man was the bad guy.
He's the evil enemy. Yeah.
There's a reason why those
Salt Shaker with hearts.
But everything's coming back now. I mean, if you told me Barnyard Commandos was going to come back, I mean, Boss Fight Studios did Bucky O'Hare toys and stuff. Like, if you told me that stuff like that, like Clay Fighter, I mean, I love Clay Fighter, that's coming back. If you told me any of that stuff was coming back just like 2 years ago, I would have told you were crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Yeah.
So, speaking of stuff like, Premium DNA and Boss Fight, I just want to ask, do you guys have any interest in the modern action figure scene, or are you really just all vintage? Are you more interested in the impact and like the legacy of the vintage stuff?
I like seeing it. That's one of the the great things about like some of the local guys, when I go over to their house and see their collections, I get to see all this stuff that I don't collect myself, which is always fun, right? So I enjoy it. I don't have any desire to collect it, other than I do have a couple prototypes from the modern stuff, just for fun. Yeah, I have a few pieces here and there that I was either gifted or bought. I have a couple Aprils and some loyal subjects, a couple of those, but yeah, not really. I mean, if it's a dozen pieces, I'd be surprised.
Okay, yeah, I know you have your April collection.
The modern stuff kind of reinforces the survival of the entire franchise, right? So I think that seeing continued product, continued toys, continued of the license is going to just kind of make sure that the vintage stuff, the stuff that we're more into, is going to maintain its value and stay relevant. Yeah. So I think that's more for me. That's how I look at, when I continue to see, Turtle products, I know that like that line's still alive, and there's still fans that are out there looking to, keep it going. And so for me, that's what the modern means.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much for me as well, that's the way I look at it. Is like I go to Target and Walmart, and I see they make these little skateboarding turtles and all this stuff, and it's like I'm not buying it, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, cool, kids still like this stuff, and like people still like this stuff, and they're still pushing it and they're keeping it relevant, and that's going to make people continue to care about the stuff that you guys are preserving and everything. So
exactly. Generations to come, like same with Star Wars. Like Star Wars is still relevant, right? It's not going away. I think Turtles is probably a close second to that franchise as far as longevity and relevance, where it's still it's still important to people, young and old, people that play with it as kids and now like our kids.
Yeah, definitely. Because
generational.
Star Wars is really the one that invented. Like I wasn't alive for that. I was born into like the Thundercats era, Thundercats, Silverhawks, that kind of stuff. But like Star Wars is really like where it started, like the big action figure collectible craze. So that must have been awesome to be in that while it was happening.
Yeah,
definitely.
I can't imagine. And did either of you guys get into like He-Man or?
I was 100% Star Wars.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I didn't care about any other toy line. The only other toys we had in our house were, I know the Legos. Every kid has Legos, but was Transformers. Yeah. That's because my younger brother liked them, but they were never mine. Like the only thing I had was Star Wars.
Which Transformers? There's still a scene for Transformers, but
yeah, they're another enduring franchise. Yeah,
yeah.
For sure.
And what about you, Gary? Did you get into? I know you said you got into GI Joe, but
yeah. So I think my childhood was primarily Star Wars, Transformers, GI Joe. They were like the three. And I don't recall ever having anything He-Man. I did Thundercats as well, but not as much. But yeah, I'd say, all the stuff that went to yard sales when I got out of toys was primarily Star Wars and GI Joe.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
So,
unfortunately.
Some lucky collector owns all that stuff.
Oh yeah, it's all in somebody's collection somewhere.
And did you always have like the collector bug? Like say like back then there was, I'm not super, please excuse me with my lack of Star Wars knowledge. I'm not super involved with the toy line. I don't know.
You say a Star Trek character's name right now, we're going to have a problem.
No, I'm not that much.
Okay, all right.
I really like what's your favorite character, Gary?
I absolutely love the Star Wars movies, the original trilogy. But I never like collected the toy line and stuff. So I believe there's a rocket firing Boba Fett figure. That's like one of the rarest, or if
that's probably the rarest and most, well, not the rarest. He's not that rare, but the most expensive toy prototype probably ever.
Yeah.
But he's not rare. I mean, yeah, in the sense of it's not production levels, but there's close to 100 of those known to exist.
Okay. Because I remember years ago, like probably like a decade ago, seeing a video and someone's like, no one even knows if this truly exists and stuff. So I'm guessing that's all just,
I've found in my collecting days, I think I've found 5 of them in the wild.
Oh, okay.
So, including the like 2 painted ones, hand painted ones, and
Chris is an old school Star Wars prototype tracker downer
hunter.
Yeah, and so that's he's well trained in the arts of toy hunting through the Star Wars.
Yeah.
I'm just his Padawan.
The way of the Jedi.
Yeah.
So, it's like I've been doing this almost 30 years, tracking down prototypes and employees and going and buying stuff and visiting them. It's like I started like 94.
Okay, so you started doing this stuff the year I stopped playing with Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, it's like 94, late 94, early 95. I think I started. So it's like it's been almost 30 years I've been doing this.
That's awesome. And like, did you always feel that collector bug? Like when you were a kid and you saw that Boba Fett in the magazine or whatever, you were like, I need that. And when you didn't find it, it drove you crazy? Or were you just kind of like,
I was always the type, like I was never, whenever I went to this store, my mom was going to buy me something. I always wanted one I didn't have because I wanted to have them all. You know, I would never buy a second Stormtrooper. I would never do that. I wouldn't buy, whatever. So I was always looking for, what's the new one here? Which one do I want? And so I pretty much had, as a kid, I had all the Star Wars, all the Empire, and about half the Jedi. And that's kind of when I started getting out of toys. Okay. But I had every figure up through like the first wave of Jedi for sure as a kid. So cool. Yeah, I was always the collector type. But I'd save the card backs and,
Oh, okay. You were an extra level than me. I didn't save the card backs, but I didn't like army build foot soldiers and stuff. Like if I went to the store and they had foot soldier and scumbug, and I didn't have scumbug, I wanted scumbug. I didn't want the foot soldier. So I was always like that. But I ripped those packages open. Oh, what about you, Gary? Were you always the collector type, or did that develop?
I think so. I think it was in my genes. I grew up getting drugged to every yard sale and flea market and stuff. So my mom owned an antique shop for years. So that kind of like collecting and trading, buying, reselling type of like thing was always part of my DNA. So yeah, but as long as I can remember, I was always like collecting something. Whether it would constantly change until I think got into my 20s, and I missed the Star Wars toys that I had as a kid, and I started reacquiring them, and that's when that all started back up again. And I haven't looked back since then.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, like I said, obviously I've never been on the level of collecting of you guys, but there was always something. I mean, when I got out of collecting Ninja Turtles, then I wanted to collect Darkwing Duck, and then when that stopped, then my brothers got into collecting Marvel cards, and there was Goosebump books and all this stuff. Like there's always collections.
Yeah, me too.
It's definitely, I guess, just like there's just a type of person out there that just loves collections.
Right. Yeah, it's in you or it's not, and it's just that simple, right? That's the best you can explain it. Either you're a collector or you're not. People get it or they don't.
Yep. And for people who do, like people who are interested in what you guys do, because not a lot of people talk about prototype collecting. Everyone talks about NECA collecting and all that stuff. For people who are into the stuff you guys do, what do you have like any plugs you can give of cool places where you guys, little communities you guys have, anything you can promote?
Yeah, there's a Ninja Turtles prototype group on Facebook. That's where a lot of us sort of congregate and talk. It's not super active, but when somebody posts something new or cool, it's like all of a sudden there's a flurry of activity, but it's I think it's just TMNT Prototype Collectors. So if you just do a search for that group, you can find it there. There's a vintage Ninja Turtles collectors group also that I run that is more based on just the general production stuff, but a lot of times prototype stuff is posted and shown about in that one as well. But I'd say if you really want to learn, first of all, get Brad Plastic, because if you want to understand this, I explain what all these things are, these terms we're talking about and throwing out here with you, hard copy and paint master, all this. Like if you're listening to this podcast, you're like, I don't know what they're talking about. Well, the book will explain it, and then join the prototype group, and that's where I mean, when people go to sell stuff, that's where it gets posted first. I think in that group, it's like this community of like, okay, we know the people here, the people that are interested in collecting this stuff are here. So we usually, sort of like a courtesy post there first before sometimes it goes out to other groups or eBay or wherever. So if you're interested in buying stuff and collecting this stuff, that's the place to go for sure. If you just want to learn about it and see cool pictures of things, that's a place too. Yeah.
And for people who aren't necessarily into the prototype collecting, whether it's because they just don't know about it or they're intimidated, they think it's going to cost too much, whatever. There's like ranges, just like there are with like regular action figure collecting, of like ways you can get into like the prototype or pre-production collecting. Even if you just want to have a couple pieces as part of your collection, there's a price range that will be accommodating to basically everybody who wants to get into it. There's super high end stuff that's expensive, but there's really nothing that's more expensive than what people are spending on like a package scratch or a package.
It's cheaper than a package
scratch. So you can get something that's maybe there's only a handful that exists that are you're going to be less of a cost than say something that there's thousands of. And I get that there's the popularity of certain characters and rarity, but there's nothing more rare than these pre-production pieces or prototype pieces. if you have an interest in that. Some people, it's just not their thing. No, I don't want, some piece of like, tan plastic or tan resin. I want the full package that, and the art is bright and, but that, whatever you're into, but like, I want to tell people, don't be scared off by like, thinking the prototype game is something I can't even touch because of pricing. That's not the case. So check it out if you're interested, and or reach out to Chris or I, and there's stuff that that we have that can get you started if you're interested, and cool stuff that again is pretty affordable.
Yeah, another thing I'll say is it's like just think through as a collector, like what is it you really want to collect? It's like people say, oh, I can't afford a $1,000 thing, but yet a lot of people are spending $50 every 2 weeks on whatever, a NECA Super 7 figure. And that's fine. If that's what you love, do it. But, if you're like, oh, I really want one of these, well, save that $50 every 2 weeks. And in 6 months, you could have enough to buy, one, $1,000 piece for, and I'm not saying just necessarily prototypes, but that's like high-end mint on card stuff or a boxed item or whatever. It's like, don't ever think that something's out of range. It's only around out of range to the measure of your patience to save up for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, yes, you're not going to be getting that collector hit, like a drug hit, every week going to Walmart. You're going to have to be patient and delay that. But man, when that 6 months is over and you get that piece that's like, ooh, like way better, whatever it does for you, whether it's a prototype or something else, it's like, try that once rather than, buying little things. It's like I always preach, people say, well, what's your like number one collecting advice? I'm like, quality over quantity all the time. Like that's my main number one piece of advice. Buy the best things you can buy. And if that takes patience and time, develop patience, and do that, because in the long run, none of us are taking this with us in the long run, or, those things are going to hold their value better. If you had an emergency, where you needed to get some funds, you got a car wreck or a health thing, and you needed, $2,000, it's a lot easier to sell two pieces and, higher end pieces and get that than it is to go try to sell, $130 pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
So, there's a lot of advantages to always going for the best things you can get and having the highest quality you can get. But also, I'm like, none of that says don't collect what you love just for the sake of that. Number one is collect what you love. But when you're looking at that, like, I love this, I love this, I love this, I love this. Now you go, okay, well, between these four, my second level criteria is what's the best quality? What's the thing that's going to hold its value? I could liquidate if I had a family emergency, and it's going to, stand the test of time a little more. So.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying about how there's times where you are just getting like, NECA Super 7, like every week, every month or something. And it kind of just becomes, business as usual. You don't even get excited when it happens. Like you get like a little slight bit of dopamine when you pick one up. But like when I got, Scratch and Hotspot and stuff, like when I bought those guys, I set up like a payment plan, obviously, where I'm, going to pay like about that a month. But honestly, I'm still so much happier having those than I am with my entire wall of NECA stuff. So like,
what I tell people is what I think you should do is try a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Try some modern figures, try some vintage loose, get a couple mint on cards, even the cheaper ones. That's fine.
Yeah.
Get a prototype, get whatever, get, random turtles, oddball stuff like bubble baths, whatever, put it all in your room. And then over the course of like 6 months, intentionally notice what thing you're looking at the most.
Yeah.
That thing is the thing you probably want to be collecting. The things you're ignoring, like, so if you go into your room and every time like, oh, these mint on cards, I just love the artwork, then why are you collecting loose? Sell the loose and collect the mint on cards. Because obviously if it's the prototype, like, oh my God, that's so amazing, I just can't keep my eyes off of it. Well, then collect that. It's like, figure that out. So and I find that's a pretty good one. But what I find is that if you don't dabble in a little bit of all of it, you'll never really know. Like I find so many people that like put off prototypes forever and ever, and then they'll get one. They're like, dude, you got me. Like, I get it now. Now that I have one, I get it, and then they're all in. It's like, well, just start there. Just get a smattering of things and figure out what it is you gravitate to.
Yeah, it's great advice. Honestly, every collector should try doing that to find out what it is they actually want. And something You were saying before, Gary, that about like, people who are going out and buying these mint on card scratches and stuff are like, there's way cheaper production stuff they could be buying. And honestly, a lot of that stuff probably would mean more to them because let's be frank, most of us didn't give a crap about Scratch when he was new. Like, well, the reason he's so sought after is because nobody owned him. So
right, it's rare. And some people like chasing rarity, and that's fine too.
Yeah. But I think like
going,
like I've heard so many people say they loved Ground Chuck. Like that was like one of their favorite figures. Well, then having like, a prototype of Ground Chuck will probably mean way more to you than having a mint on card Scratch. So
right. Yeah, exactly.
It might be cheaper. So
yeah, really good actually. And I don't think there's anything we have or have ever sold. It's like $10,000. And then some of these like graded carded scratches and hotspots. I mean, that's what they're fetching now, which is crazy.
I don't know if people are actually buying them, but that's what they're selling for.
Well, you see some sales on eBay that look like they're legit, fitness site auctions. So.
Oh, it's not like the fake craze a couple years ago where people were like the Black Diamond VHS tapes of Disney movies are worth $20,000. Like, no, they're worth $1. Like, let's be real. $10 max. But that's great advice. Honestly, I think all collectors should take a step back and think about what you guys said and really figure out what they want to do with their collection, because it's easy to get swept up in it, especially when you're watching all these YouTube videos of people saying, oh, you got to get this wave from Super 7, you got to get this figure and everything, and talking about how great everything is. Everything starts to look cool. It happens to me too. And you buy something and you're like, I didn't really need this actually. So it's important to figure out what you want to collect and commit to that.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on. I had a blast talking to you guys. Don't be strangers. Anytime you want to come back and talk or anytime I want to talk to you about you guys.
Before we go, I had a couple little show and tells if you want to see some stuff we picked up this weekend.
Yeah, let's do that.
Do that real quick. I know we've got about 5 more minutes, but
that's all right. Let's go.
A couple things out of the lot. So here's an interesting. Each of them have a story. So of course, right. We talked about story. So here's an Irma hard copy. Wow. So the interesting thing about Irma, if you look at the production figure, you'll see she has a little blob of pink, like on her left lapel in the production figure.
Yeah.
And did you ever know what that little blob of pink was? Most people are like, "There's a little blob of pink." I've asked people like, "Oh, I thought it was bubble gum or something."
I thought it was just like a little tag or something.
I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Yep, you can see it. But if you go real close here, can you tell what that is? It's a unicorn.
Oh, it is a unicorn. Oh my God.
But the detail from the hard copy to the production gets so washed out. You lose so much detail. That thing just turned into a little blob. And then they painted it pink. And it's just like, you can't even tell what it is. But so there's an interesting story about Irma. She has a unicorn on her lapel.
Well, I never would have ever known that.
Yeah. Here's a Toxic Crusader figure we picked up this weekend. And the interesting thing about this is he has an alternate sculpt. So this is a different sculpt than the final one that was released.
Yeah, he has like a smile, it looks like there. He didn't have that in the final.
And if you don't know what a hard copy is, and you're, yikes, now I'm dropping stuff, and you're watching this, they come apart. Like they're pinned together. They don't have they're not like attached like production figures are. So it's these metal pins and they just pop apart. I wasn't going to do that one. I was going to do.
That was such a great toy line, by the way.
This is a Next Mutation line from '97. And there was a line of unreleased figures called Shadow Ninja.
Oh, okay.
And this is the Venus from the Shadow Ninja line. So there's a cool unreleased one. And then finally, this one has an interesting story. So you'll look at this and you'll see, oh, that looks like Ninja Newscaster April, or possibly the Cave April, which was a repaint of that figure. But what this actually is originally was a Yvonne figure from Toxic Crusaders. And it was going to be the second year of Toxic Crusaders. And when they canceled that, they had 2 Yvonne figures already sort of started in sculpting. This one and one that looks a lot like the Ravishing Reporter. And so because they were so far along and had spent some money on it, they decided to turn both these figures into Ninja Turtles April figures.
Okay, so I knew the Ravishing. I knew the Ravishing one. I never knew the
Ninja Newscaster is the same. This is what we call a hard copy off the clay. So the clay is an early stage of the sculpt. It doesn't have all the detail yet. Okay. So this one's a one piece too. Sometimes they're one pieces, but sometimes they can come apart in pin pieces. So this is technically Toxic Crusaders, but turned into Ravishing Reporter or Ninja Newscaster April. So there's an interesting story there, that figure.
To be honest, it looks more like April than Yvonne anyway.
Yes, this one does. The original Ravishing Reporter, the head, the original head for that figure is absolutely Yvonne. It doesn't look like April.
Okay.
But it's pretty cool. They redid the head. That's the one with like the flocked hair that looks horrible. Yeah. The one that was going to be for Toxic Crusader wasn't going to have that flocked hair. It was going to have sculpted hair like the normal, female figures do.
That was kind of, I think going out of fashion at that point. In the 80s, anytime you had girl figures, they usually had the combable hair, like She-Ra, and even the Filmation Ghostbusters, the female ghosts had like brushable hair and stuff.
Yeah.
But
that's it. That's just a few things. We got a whole bunch of stuff we found that we're going to be, if you're at all interested in purchasing some things, some of this is going to be for sale. Some of it we keep for ourselves, and it'll be join that prototype group, TMNT Prototype Collectors. If any of your listeners are at all interested in any of this, so we'll be posting some stuff up there. That'll be available.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for the awesome stuff we got to just take a look at.
Mm-hmm.
And happy holidays, I guess.
Yes, happy holidays. Thanks.
Christmas. We wish you a Turtles Christmas.